Okay, today I am here with Tabitha. Tabitha is one of our horticulture specialists, and it is hot. North Carolina summer has arrived. It was a slow start. It felt like it, but it is here.
Yes.
And we are out here watering. Still watering. The watering never ends. And so we wanted to talk about some of the tips and tricks to keeping your plants healthy in this summer heat, in this North Carolina heat. And so I asked Tabitha if she would be willing to share with me everything we need to know about watering and keeping the plants hydrated during this summer heat. And so Tabitha, how often should we be watering when these temperatures are in the upper 80s, getting into the 90s? How often do our plants need to be getting water?
So honestly, that's kind of a complicated question. It's one we get here a lot from our customers. I mean, really here in general, in the Sandhills, this high heat, peak summer, July, August, you're looking at watering every day, whether it's hand watering or irrigation.
Right.
You should probably be getting water on those plants every day unless we're getting a good rain. And I do mean a good rain.
Yeah.
More than like an inch or two. It can really vary depending on the area you have, the plants you have in it, and how you are watering as well.
Yeah, for sure. Because especially, I remember Jim was telling us in the first episode that, you know, if you've got that sandy soil, the water's just going to run straight through it. If you've got that clay soil, it's going to sit a little longer and hold. So that is a good point, that it will really depend on your soil and what you have going on around your plants.
And then once we hit summer, it gets really dry here. Our rain starts to peter out. We don't get near as much. We don't get nearly as heavy rains.
Yeah.
So we might have to water more often just to kind of supplement.
Yeah. And you made a good point of like, it needs to be a heavy rain to really make an impact. That's something that you all have taught me. You know, I'll be like, oh, it rained, you know, like we're good. We don't need to send someone out to water on Sunday. And Tabitha was the first to always tell me like, no, like that wasn't enough. Yeah. Somebody needs to be watering.
I'm really big on having rain gauges and watching the rain patterns. Even if we do have a nice heavy rain, especially if you have potted plants, if you have a lot of foliage in those plants and those pots, there's a good chance that rain never reached, or at least not much, ever got into that soil, and you might still have a very dry soil. And a lot of these soils too, especially potting soils that are high, like heavy in peat mixes and stuff like that, they can get kind of hydrophobic when they dry out. So they need a good soaking to hold their ability to hold water.
Okay, that makes
sense. You know, like I said, a lot of factors that go into it and a lot of stuff to think about and consider when you're going to water your plants.
Obviously, having an irrigation system is the #1 solution to keeping things watered regularly. Arai Outdoor Solutions does do irrigation systems. All the supplies that you need for an irrigation system, we carry that here. And Arai Outdoor Solutions can install that. But not everybody is at a point where they can put in an irrigation system, or maybe you're renting and it's not something that you can do in the home. And so there are other solutions when you don't have access to an irrigation system. There are plenty other ways to help you keep up with the watering that don't have you just standing over your plants all day long.
So these Hoker hoses are great. Really, the ideal for a lot of irrigation is drip irrigation these days. It's what a lot of people are kind of moving towards, because it's slow, like soaking the water into the soil. It's not just dumping a bunch on with sprayer hoses that hit a lot of the foliage. It's right down at the roots, directly into the soil, and it's a slow leak. So it's in cases where you have high heat like we do here. It helps a lot with the hydrophobic tendencies of a lot of soil, and things just kind of like soak in better around those roots. And you're really targeting the roots with drip. And this is kind of like your alternative to a drip irrigation system. This, like a drip tube, has just a bunch of little holes kind of perforated all around it. And when you turn it on and you flood this hose with water, it just slowly leaches out into your soil. And it's really malleable. You can move it all around based on how your planting changes, wherever you want, who needs water the most.
How much do they cover? So if you run that like right in between your plants, should you be wrapping that around the plant? Like how should you place it?
I would just kind of like bypass, just like It depends on how your bed is laid out, but like just in a line, I wouldn't wrap it around each individual plant. That's a little bit of an overkill, I think. But as long as it's going by within a few inches of the base of that plant and hitting like most of the plants along the way.
Okay, so it's okay if it's only on one side of the plant. It's still gonna.
You know, I don't feel like with these that you need to hit both sides or all sides.
Okay. So how long are you gonna keep a drip line on? So if you turn that on, how long do you want to keep it on?
Pretty much any kind of irrigation system, I recommend running for a minimum of an hour.
Okay.
Again, this varies based off site, the soil you have, the kind of plants you have. What I tell people to do is run it that first time for an hour, go out, check your soil, go down about 3 inches and see how saturated that soil is. If you still have any dryness within those 3 inches, you need to irrigate more. If it's good and saturated, then the hour is probably good. You might be able to go a little less depending on how big the bed is, that kind of thing, what you have in there.
Yeah.
But check it after that hour, and then you can scale it back if you need to. You can run a couple more tests, run it for 20 minutes, run it for 40, however you want to do that.
Yeah.
But a minimum of an hour.
That's a great tip, the 3 inches. Yeah. Now, what time of day should you be doing this?
I like to water as early as possible.
Okay.
I'm really big on not watering after about 4 in the afternoon. That's just kind of what I was raised on in school, how they ran it in the greenhouses and stuff. When you have stuff that's wet into the night, that's when you kind of up your chance for fungus and pest and disease.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, when you have stuff that's too wet for too long, that's when you run into like rot and that kind of thing.
Okay.
So I like to water as early as I can in the day, ideally before we hit peak heat, which is usually like 2 to 4 in the afternoon. And that way the top soil of that plant and the plant itself, depending on how I water, has time to dry out.
Okay. Say I'm not at my house every single day. I work away or I'm going on vacation. That's when these tools come in.
Yeah, so these are really great. These are both just timers. It's 2 different kinds of timers, so 2 different setups that you can do. This one is kind of more of, I call it a semi-automatic timer. You have to turn this on to start it and get it going, but you can set it for whatever time you want. This just hooks up right to your spigot and right to like your drip hose, whatever else you're irrigating with. And then you set it for the time that you want. And then once it hits that time, it shuts off and you don't have to worry about it. You come back around when you have time. You can shut your own spigot off. You can leave it on however you are comfortable with doing that. But this one just goes for the amount of time you want and then it's done. This one, however, I believe this is battery operated. So that's something you have to keep up with on it. But you can set this to go off every 6 hours, 12 hours, 2 days, however you want to set it. And without you coming out to turn on your spigot or anything yourself, again, this one, it connects to your spigot. It's kind of like a little mini irrigation box.
Yep.
And then it connects to your soaker hose, whatever else you're irrigating with. But it turns on that whatever time you set, again, 6, 12 hours every 2 days. And then it shuts off on its own after the amount of time that you set, 30 minutes, an hour, 2 hours, and then you just keep going.
Yeah.
And all you have to worry about with this, again, is the battery life.
Yep. So this is a great solution when you're not quite ready for the full irrigation system to kind of create your own little mini irrigation system with this little adapter that's, you know, less than $40. So, awesome solution. Okay. We've come inside because it's so hot that our camera overheated and you can't water our camera. So we have relocated to discuss the wand, the watering wand. So these wands, they come in so many different sizes and shapes, but they basically all do the same thing. These all have different settings, you know, the shower, the mist, the flat fan. And so I'm just curious, like, what is the use of all of those settings? What would you typically recommend using? What are the purpose of all of those?
Yeah, showers and center are probably the 2 that you'll use the most just because they have wider like fan ranges and they put out a good bit of pressure for watering. You don't want a ton of pressure directly on those plants because again, you just beat it to death.
Anything.
Yeah, you can hurt the foliage, you can disrupt a lot of the soil doing that, hurt the roots if you're hitting into the soil. But shower, center, and like rain, like I said, this one has, you tend to be pretty gentle.
Yeah, and just like we were talking with the drip line, you want to make sure that you're watering down into the plant, like the base of the plant, correct?
You want to water as much into the base as possible, whether that's in the landscape or in containers.
Okay. Yeah. Is there any benefit to watering the leaves, to watering the blooms, to watering the top of a plant?
Yeah, there is actually benefit to watering onto the top of the plant. That is not how you water the plant. You're not getting water into the root system by doing that.
Okay.
But when you have situations of high heat in plants that have gone to wilt already, or having just issues in general with the heat, that watering the top, it's called syringing the foliage, it causes transpiration. And it just helps the plant kind of hold on to water, and it just keeps it, as it's holding onto that water, it's taking up new water, and it just helps it get through that wilt and kind of that stress period a little bit better.
Yeah, like the more and more I'm around plants, the more and more I realize they're a lot like us. They're a lot like humans.
They are living things.
They're living things. And just like us, like treat your plants how you want to be treated.
Yes.
Right? Give them water at the base. Think of that base as their mouth. You're hydrating them. You're giving them the water that's going to go inside them, and then sprinkle a little bit on the outside as well, because who doesn't love a nice water spray in the dead of summer? So thank you so much for sharing. If you guys are worried about a plant, you think something's going on with the watering, take a picture, bring it in, talk to us, talk to the horticulture specialist, and we'll do our best to help you diagnose the problem and hopefully get you back, your plant back to where you want to see it thriving. Yeah. So thanks, Tabitha. Appreciate you.
Yeah, of course.